It's Jant Blur here. I'm here at a Leaf Brew out in West Philly. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Breaks. I'm about to go just get a regular coffee with some milk, man. I'm pretty simple like that. I'm about to cook up some beats afterwards. Peace. Here. Is Miles Davis Horace Silver? Was that song from my brother? Is that what he did? Drifters. I'll say one thing real quick. When it comes to vinyl, man, the most important thing is these credits down here. Especially with these older records here. It's all about the songwriters, the musicians, because they're really writing the songs, you know? You might hear 5 records by 5 different artists that sound exactly the same, and you're like, why the hell is that? It's because they got the same writers, the same fucking, you know, excuse my language, kind of musicians on here. It's like nowadays how you hear different rappers on the same beats. The version of the same beats back then was the studio musicians they were using. Just a little bit more subtle. You're not gonna see like, you know, produced by DJ Premier on some fucking 70s record, but you're gonna see that, you know, fucking Chick Corea played on this shit, and you know, you can find 100,000 other records with him on it, and you know you're gonna hear a certain sound when you hear that, you know. I've been listening to hip hop my whole life, you know. My dad was into hip hop, like he was always playing in the house. So I was just, you know, I liked it, and I've always also just been involved with music in a variety of ways, and it seemed that like hip hop was really my entryway to just be creative in that space, you know. Like I heard all this music, and I liked it, and I wanted to participate, and it seemed like working through hip hop and making beats, that was my way to kind of join in the space, you know, and I just started working at it and it just became natural. And at that point, when I knew I could do it, that kind of kept me inspired. It's like, oh, I can do this now. And nowadays, what inspires me, man, is it's just life, man. Like, my records is just my journal. Like, sometimes I hear music, but sometimes I'm just outside and I feel a type of way and I want to put that on, you know, on record. Just in the beats or in anything, you know, and that's what kind of keeps me going to this day. Just the love of it too, man. It's just really fun, and it's cool to kind of make something out of nothing, you know. It's like before the record's even made, it's just all kind of a cloud, you know, and then after that, you've kind of made something, you know, and just that joy of creating, man, it really keeps me going. Yeah, another thing, I like my empathy high, man. Like, sometimes I'll be seeing other beat makers, or even me, man, like, you be like looking down and stuff, and it's good, but I don't know. I be using this too much. I don't want to hurt my neck. So I kind of have this set up here and try to keep it mobile and stuff. You really just want to have whatever's natural to you and what kind of works in your life and your workflow. And in that way, that you'll kind of get the best music. There's no real secret technique. It's really just kind of being true to yourself and learning how to reflect what you're doing and who you are and the music that you're making. Right. Yeah, so like, you don't want speakers that make your shit sound good, because like that is dishonest. Like, if it sounds good, then the speaker's doing something that your beat is not, to kind of fill in the gaps. And well, it might be nice when you're kind of in the session and all that, it's not gonna allow your shit to translate. And that's a big thing, man, because like, you know, the car test, the fucking outside test, you know, you gotta make, you know, playing beats on like 30 speakers just to see if it sounds right. So you want to find something that's flat. That's the key word, a flat speaker. If you go to some audio dude and ask him for that, he'll know what he's talking about. Or he'll know what you're talking about, rather. So these iLouds are pretty good. They don't have as much bass as the average speaker, but that's really fine. Like, the key of mixing is really the mids and the highs, and the bass is just kind of like the icing on top. So you gotta, if you can work with that part of the music, then like you'll be fine, you know. And listen, man, a lot of records, you know, up until the 808, like the drum machine came out, like a lot of them old records, that's all they had. They had a little bit of bass to them, and it was mostly mids and highs. So if you learn how to mix and you learn how to treat your music the way those records are made, you know, you won't need some fucking subs to mix, but maybe later on when you're playing it, you can use that. Usually I let stuff play through. Honestly, I've sampled enough records where sometimes you can look at the sound waves and just like know what's going on. Like you can see here, it's a whole bunch of shit. So there's probably a bunch of drums and stuff there. So I can put this up here. There you go. You got drums and vocals and whatnot. This is a good record here because it's pretty slow. So even when all the instruments are in, you can still take samples from like the busier parts. Sometimes you'll have records where if there's, you know, once the drums come in, once the vocals come in, it's pretty much unflippable, you know. But this one here, like you listen to this, you know, this is just like a loop you could cut right off the bat without even having to put nothing on it. So I think I could do that, but for what's going on here, I kind of wanted to show all the kind of bells and whistles that I got going on here. I think the reason though that I haven't upgraded is like it's so much depth to this machine, man. Like I wouldn't want it to change at all until I've completely mastered it. And I've been working at this same version for years, and I still find stuff. Like it's still techniques that I'm learning. It's still different ways I can cut samples. So until I've maxed out every damn possibility I can think of, I'm gonna just keep with what I have right now. You know, some people, they use the quantize, they don't. It's like this whole debate. It feels like it's just this underlying, like, you know, authenticity contest people be having with how they're creating, like, oh, you gotta have the drums be freeform this. Bro, it's a drum machine. You're not playing the drums, so the quantize is an effect, just like how you use a delay or something like that. So use it sparingly, use it when it's needed. You know, sometimes a robotic rhythm is what's necessary. You know, you listen to funk records in the 80s, you listen to, you know, rap records in the 2000s, they have a real steady quantized rhythm, and that's what gives it the feel. Like if the drums were loose in those records, it wouldn't hit the same way as if it was kind of that tinny kind of robotic cadence that they got going on. So, you know, don't be afraid to like do that or utilize something. Like sometimes I'll have parts of the record that are on grid, parts that are off, or sometimes it's all on grid, sometimes it's all off grid. It's really just whatever works for the record, you know. It's like kung fu. It's like no technique is the technique, you know. You gotta have to just feel it out and know what the beat needs and know how to listen for what the music is kind of requiring of you to do. I like Mobb Deep, like a lot of Havoc stuff. I always like the space they had in those beats, especially on like the Infamous and things. It's very, man, it just feels like you're there. Like as much as like the record is a good beat, it just kind of gives it this, it's like you see that cover, you see them standing there, you see that like it is cinematic, man. Like, and he kind of captures that in the music, and I really like that richness that he brings to it, man. And those are like when I think of beats, when stuff kind of comes to my head, like, you know, Temperatures Rising, all them kind of records, they always be sitting in the back of my head, just humming along and stuff. And the way he kind of uses like simple drums and kind of spaces it out, like Havoc's real crazy with it. I do like a lot of West Coast stuff. I like stuff from all over, man. A big fan of like Dre and Quick. just because you got that clean, rich sound, as I was talking about before. It's like they also just they understood how to like use the drum machines and also use a lot more varied texture to kind of bring out, you know, interesting stuff in the music. Um, Let me think. I like Kanye's stuff. Obviously, I mean, he's done a lot, and I think what's cool about his work is that it's like his process is very open. It's like not his music's almost like a tutorial on how to make music as much as it is records, and it kind of makes it very inspiring, and it's interesting. He's kind of like if you listen to a lot of like artists in like the mid 20th century, like in the 70s, or I guess mid to late like 70s and 80s, you have a lot of artists that experiment and a lot of like kind of very fusiony, interesting records where you might have, you know, a guy that has a pop song that takes from like some African music, that takes from like some electronic shit, and these very varied textures. And I feel like Ye does a good job of keeping that tradition alive. Learn how to just look at the knobs and know what's going on. If you can figure out how to do an EQ just from looking at the frequencies and all that shit, it'll train your ear and you'll be able to get a lot more of what you're looking for. I think a lot of my style is defined by the MPC, right? Like just the way that I work, the way I can chop samples and play drums, like the limitations and the way the workflow goes in that device really kind of, it influences my sound a bit. I guess my style, man, I'd say it's pretty Philly in a way, like just in the, not even just like in like recent Philly stuff, but old school Philly records and stuff, just because of how rich the sound is that I try to go for. I like a cleaner kind of textured sound. Like I'm really into mixing just so that the beat can kind of breathe. And I think that that's been like a Philly thing in terms of the records that have been coming out for a long time. So I kind of see myself in that lineage. I think a lot of what a lot of what I try to do is just sometimes it's just let the records breathe, or kind of like bring the ideas that the records are back. So I don't know, man. My style is just it's me. That too, man. Like I don't really try to fit in. I try to just explore who I am and get the sound that sounds good to me, and then, you know, be it where it may, just kind of wherever it lays out is what it is. And I think that's the best way that I can, you know, create. Yeah. Thing I do here sometimes is I'll have one part of the beat that's kind of fixed, quantized, and then I'll replay some of the other sample chops kind of freeform to match that locked in groove. That way, especially when you're chopping samples, even if you get it exact, a lot of times each chop within there, it's not all the way in rhythm. Sometimes you gotta replay it just so that it hits right, so the groove kind of matches what's going on. Like for this example here, I want to replay these drums because the drums, I lay them down initially, you get the idea of that break, but it doesn't lock into the groove the way I want it to. So I'm going to replay it now that I have that other kind of like kick and snare that I just did, so we can kind of fit in and, you know, kind of be a bit more funky. All right. I also like a lot of Southern records, like a lot of like UGK and a lot of like DJ Paul stuff. People don't realize that like they were using the MPC too. Like you always think of the MPC as like this East Coast boom bap machine, but like they were using that shit in Memphis and in Texas and in Atlanta, and they were using it in totally different ways. And once you understand that, like, they were making beats with that shit, like DJ Paul was using an MPC or using an SP1200. Once you understand they were using the same process that like fucking Primo was using to get that different kind of sound, it opens your mind of what you can do on the MPC, you know? And you're like, shit, man, like I could make all kinds of records, and you realize that kind of the sky is the limit. And so I like listening to those guys too, because it really just, you're like, damn, how did he do that? Like, how did he flip this record or do that, you know? And yeah, the southern shit is real crazy, because I always feel like on the East Coast you have like this segment of like conscious records and more like club records. But in the South, it's like, it's the same thing. Like, you'll have a record that will be like banging in the club, but like, they'll really be saying some shit on the verses. But like, you'd have to, in the East Coast, it'd be very separated, you know? And that's what I like about a lot of Southern rap, is it hits all bases in one. You know, you listen to a UGK record, man, like you could hear that shit going on in the club or something. And then you could also, you listen to fucking what Bun B is saying, and that's like real life shit, you know? And like, that's a crazy juxtaposition. Like, that's like real soul music. Like, that's how you do it, is you know, you have something that can, you know, get the groove going and like have you dancing and stuff, but also kind of speak to your mind at the same time. And I just really respect that they're able to do that in hip hop, man. It's hard to do. All right, so that loop is done. I'm gonna do a quick little B section here. Another pro tip: B sections, other parts of the, like, it's good to have a good loop, but if you can have a little section that can switch up either at the end of a 4-bar phrase, or have another little thing that can denote a chorus or some sort of structure, it just adds to what's going on. And you know, it also kind of showcases how you can do more with the record than just something up front. I created this second section here. I thought I wanted some drums, but honestly I like it like this, just with that little flick sound and the sample. Because what that does is it gives this section a little bit more of an interesting feel, you know? Like, the drums are gone, you're focusing on the sample, kind of gives it that space to breathe. So when the drums come back in on the other section, it kind of hits that much harder, right? Like, if the drums were hitting the same way on the second section, it would sound monotonous, you know? So having that ebb and flow is really important. Like, you want to have a push and pull to the music, and you want to know how to build tension and kind of just have that space for the music to breathe, so that you can reintroduce another section again and have it still sounding fresh, you know? It's little subtle things. Like, sometimes you'll hear beats that have all these different things going on and like different little, they call it ear candy to do stuff. But a lot of times you just got to know how to just feel the energy out. Like, sometimes you just take a drum out, or sometimes you just have some sort of tension where like the sample kind of repeats really frequently. Just little kind of arrangement techniques with just the sample and just the drums can carry you a lot further than having like a little bird tweet every 2 bars or something on the same loop that runs for 3 minutes. So, you know, just be wise with it. Learn different things. Listen to the records too, man. Like, as much as the vinyl is like ammo for you to sample and stuff like that, they were really on some crazy techniques with the arrangements, man. Like the way they were drumming, the way they keep a song going, all those type of things. You listen to them disco records, bro, they'll have the same breakbeat for like 7 minutes and keep it interesting. How do they do that, you know? Like, listen to how they're figuring that out, and you can learn a lot from what they were doing in order to kind of enhance what you got going on, because they had a lot less to work with, and they had records that lasted a lot longer and are obviously good enough for you to listen to. So yeah, man, this is pretty much finished up here. I ain't really got to do too much else to it. I'm gonna play it one more time and we're gonna be good. I got a couple beat tapes out already. You can look those up just under Jant Blur, man, on all the streaming stuff. I have a lot of records coming out with my friend Jay Cinema out of Harlem. We've been doing a lot of records recently. I've been going up to New York. He's been coming down here. Also, my friend Johnny Vudo, he's out of, I think he's out the Bronx. Yeah, he's uptown. He's all the way out there, man. And I've been working with him. A lot of New York cats recently. I just how the cards fall. I got also another group that I'm working with, Prism. It's two girls out of Uptown in New York too. They do kind of some dance hall music. You'll start to hear I got a little bit of other stuff coming out the MPC too, man. I'm not just a one trick pony with this shit, you know. But I also got my own stuff too. I've been rapping a little bit. I've got my own beats, and you're gonna hear a lot of that stuff coming out soon, man. It's gonna be quite the run in the next year and a half, man. I'll tell you that. All right, yo, this is Jant Blur, man. It's the Beige Wonder, man. You know how I keep it 10, man. That's what it is. This is Coffee Breaks, man. It's been a good time here, man. You heard some crazy beats. You heard all that, yo. I've been giving game, man. That's what you come here for. That's what you come to Coffee Breaks for, man. Game, understanding, real artists, Philly shit. You know what it is. Peace.